all we need to do is take over the media in these NATO countries, and that's primarily social media, get one of our pawns elected as the president, and that president will control the military. So it's much cheaper and more efficient to win a military war by simply winning civilian election.
How are you all? Did you have a good Christmas? It was good, wasn't it?
When did the government realize that they had to get actively involved in censorship, and what steps did they initially take to get involved in this?
It started in 2014 with the Ukraine fiasco, the coup and then the counter coup. The coup was great for internet free speech. I mean, you really do need to start the story of internet censorship with the story of internet freedom, because promotion of censorship is sort of the flip side of promotion of free speech. And we've had this free speech government diplomatic role for 80 years now. When World War II ended, we embarked, we had the International Rules-Based Order that was created in 1948. We had the UN, we had NATO, we had the IMF, the World Bank. We had this big global system now. There was a prohibition in 1948 under the UN Declaration of Human Rights that you can't acquire territory by military force anymore and have it be respected by international law. So everything had to move to soft power influence. And so the U.S. government took a very active role beginning in 1948 to promote free speech around the world. And this was done through all these, initially CIA proprietaries like Voice of America and Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty. And then the whole Wisner's, Wurlitzer, State Department CIA apparatus, all the early partnerships with the media and the war machine around propaganda for World War II continued through the Cold War. And then that hit the gas with promotion of free speech on the internet when the internet was privatized. It was initially a military project, so it was a government operation from Jump Street. And then in 1991, the World Wide Web came out, civilian use. And right away, the State Department, the military, our intelligence sphere was promoting free speech so that we could have a basically government pressure on foreign countries to open up their internet, to allow basically groups that the U.S. government was supporting to be able to combat state control over media in those other countries. So we already had this sort of deep interplay between government, tech companies, universities, NGOs that dates back 80 years. If you look at the evolution of NGOs like Freedom House or the Atlantic Council or Wilson Center in promoting these free speech things. So, but what happened is in 2014, we had about 25 years of successful free speech diplomacy. And then there was we tried to overthrow the government of Ukraine. We successfully did. And I'm not even arguing whether that's a good or a bad thing. But the fact is the U.S. did effectively January 6th, the Yanukovych government out of power in 2014. I mean, we literally had our Assistant Secretary of State for Europe and Eurasian Affairs, Victoria Nuland, handing out cookies and water bottles to violent street protesters as they surrounded the Parliament building and ran the democratically elected government out of office.
Someone just wrote my stepdaughter's school saying, we're going to show this film and it's got serious notions, but it also had some sexual language in it. But don't worry, we've taken out the sexual language. We restrict movies because they have sex in them, but we don't when people are being stabbed in the eye or their head is being cut off.
I think it was training day. I was watching in America. I was in the gym once, believe it or not. And it was like 2 p.m. in the morning. And there's a scene there where he's going, fuck you, no, fuck you. Fuck. And they changed that to forget you, right? Yeah. And then he shot him in the heart.
Yeah.
But then what happened is the eastern side of the state completely broke away. So we don't respect this new U.S.-installed government. Crimea voted in a referendum to join the Russian Federation. And that kicked off, that sort of set in motion the events that would end the concept of free speech diplomacy as like a U.S. government unfettered good. Because what they argued is we pumped $5 billion worth of U.S. government money into media institutions in Ukraine. That's the figure that's cited by Victoria Nuland in December 2013, right before the coup. $5 billion setting up independent media companies, basically sponsoring Mockingbird style our media assets in the region. And they still didn't penetrate eastern Ukraine. Eastern Ukraine was primarily ethnic Russian, didn't penetrate Crimea. So they said, we need something to stop them from being able to combat our media influence. And they initially called this the Gerasimov Doctrine, named after Valery Gerasimov, who was this Russian general. they took a quote from him saying, "The new nature of war is no longer about military to military conflict. All we need to do is take over the media in these NATO countries, and that's primarily social media, get one of our pawns elected as the president, and that president will control the military. So it's much cheaper and more efficient to win a military war by simply winning civilian elections." So that was called the Gerasimov Doctrine. That's what set up the early censorship infrastructure in 2014. 3 years later, the guy who coined that, Mark Galeotti, would write a sort of mea culpa saying, "Oops, I'm sorry." Gerasimov was actually citing what the U.S. does. But by that point, they'd already renamed it hybrid warfare. NATO formally declared its tanks to tweets doctrine, saying that the new role of NATO is no longer just about tanks, it's about controlling tweets. And then Brexit happened in June 2016. In July 2016, the very next month in Warsaw, NATO added hybrid warfare to its formal charter, basically authorizing the military, the diplomatic sphere, and the intelligence world to take control over social media. And then 5 months later, Trump won the election, being called a Russian asset. So all that infrastructure was redirected home to the U.S.
Jesus.
Well, I mean, you can't know it's a masterpiece because that's subjective. So however good you think it is, however good you're pleased with it, you've also got to know that as many people hate it as love it. If it's any good, people will hate it because it should polarize. Really good things should be saying something, and because everyone's different, some people should hate it because it should be against what they believe or want to hear. Or so, masterpiece is subjective term. So there's no consensus. Everything I've ever done has got 5 stars, 4 stars, 3 stars, 2 stars, and 1 star. Everything comes out. It's just you've just got to assume you're doing it for yourself. And so to know something's good is to be pleased with it, that you've done your best. I knew it was different. Because I went to it with a big string of don'ts, like things that I didn't like, or examples. I thought some things were really. Everyone's a critic, and I used to sit in front of the telly and go, "That's rubbish. I can do better than that." But you've got to put your money where your mouth is, and so you've got to do your best. Then you realise how hard it is. Now I don't do that really. I don't watch things I don't like. I don't watch things. I don't hate watch anything. I don't slag anything off publicly because I know how hard it is to do a bad show. Let alone a good show. Let alone an amazing show. Let alone a show that everyone loves that goes massive. You can't even plan for that because great shows don't get watched and bad shows, some people do. So I knew it was different, and I knew it had turned out just like I wanted, and that's all. And the reaction wouldn't have made much difference, really. As I say, there are some people that hate it. So what does that mean? Well, it means nothing. It means everyone's different, so you've got to do it. You've got to do it for you. Do I get nervous when you put something new out there? I get excited. Again, I know the reaction. I know that some people are going to love it and some people will hate it, and everything in between. And most people, there are 7 billion people on there, most people won't watch it. So, all you've got to do is get paid, have fun doing it, and try your best. The fact that someone keeps giving me money to make stuff, I've won. So you can't worry about a bad review or someone going, "This is shit." In fact, you've got to encourage it. You've got to polarize. Titch. But thank you for saying. Did you say it was a masterpiece? I've embarrassed myself. Will you suggest me? You go, "I didn't say it was a masterpiece." No. If you did, then thank you. Have a nice new year. Stay safe. Right. Tatty bye, everyone. Be nice to animals. Tatty bye.